MC. Triple D. Be so smooth and I'm just chillin' in the west side. Stay in the south, but you know we always ride. And they can't tell me they can't feel this, man. I know you might just cry. Come on. That's happy tears, man. You know we always fly. And we just handling emotion, cause you know we in our prime. Do that. It's 4 a.m. working late night and I'm just on live. And we in our prime, seeing all angles, man, our aura shines. With me a smoothie and I'm back on the mic, I just rhyme. Sacred lands, I'm grounded, meditate, you know, don't do the time. Real spirits wavy, on the dot daily, I clear my mind. We never lie, you know I fly, my chakras be divinely aligned. When I'm on the ground cruising city to city, might hit highway 5. Set that plan and make it shake, you know it's about that time. Hit the switches on the ride, you know it's jumping now. Yeah, we keep it flowing real peaceful, and you know she a keeper. Real peaceful, real mean too, cause we gotta be lethal now. Do to make a move, man. It's what we do now. MC just flew, man. MC in the sky, never land. And you know I got it in my hands. Everything you're looking for is in your palms. Yeah, come on. The way I move, you know that I be on my groove. Told her if you need that, baby, hit me line 2. And I do my business steady, already knew like it's blues. And I'm using what I got, the earth's my turf. You know I use my toe to get it like I'm burnt. I know they lurk, so you know I be focused full. I used to skate, so you know I be on my feet well balanced. Do stay healthy and clean, and you know you can't be moving like a bee. Was chilling by the water, posted in the V. Made a movie scene, and you know we kept it big. Them guys was lurking, but you know we kept it real. 4x4 through the city, well protected, shit. Well protected, man. And when I'm riding, yeah, you know that shit, that sound to make it shake and change the habits. You know we can't do the lean. It be bad for your health, can't be capped into your face. We call that red flag, so I keep it solid. Yeah, you know I'm riding for my team. SCW, start walking, yeah, we flying G.
Hello and welcome to this live stream. You just heard MC 333 with his song Organic Smoothies. If you're interested in his music, you can check it out in the description below of the stream. Yes, so I want to say thank you to MC 333 still, and yes, this stream is going to be about UFOs from a Jungian perspective. There's some of the flow notes already in the description too, if you're interested about the upcoming points for this talk. And yeah, regarding the Jungian perspective, maybe Raine, you can take it away.
Yeah, sure. And just to kick things off, it's, there's a lot of things going on in the whole greater UFO phenomena. And again, we're just focusing specifically on kind of the Jungian and the psychological aspect to it all. So maybe we can start with a quote by Carl Jung then. Oh, he wrote a book in '59 about the UFO phenomena. He was pretty fascinated by it. Now he says, at a time when the world is divided by an iron curtain, we might expect all sorts of funny things. Since when such a thing happens in an individual, it means a complete dissociation, which is instantly compensated by symbols of wholeness and unity. The phenomena might even be both rumor as well as fact. In this case, it would be what I call a synchronicity. And later he talks about the radar blip phenomena, from the military and stuff, which is, has only increased in frequency and intensity. He says it boils down to nothing less than this, that either psychic projections throw back a radar echo or the appearance of real objects affords opportunity of mythological projections. So really that's just him trying to, continue in this line of psychological explanation, trying to explain these radar blips that keep coming up. We've seen it most recently, like with the Tic Tac aliens and, all the stuff that Joe Rogan brings the military boys on to talk about. It's like the radar blips are really the only accepted scientific evidence of the phenomena, since you can easily, discredit firsthand accounts and all that. Coupled with the increased sightings of the military and all the Pentagon conferences that have only increased lately. So obviously nothing wrong with a bit of healthy skepticism on the topic, but we are going to be talking, a little bit about the science, little military, little firsthand account, little pop culture, and even sort of rumors and all that, because they all have a mythic function. And also important to remember that there are very real people caught up in these experiences. Purpose is not to discredit or diagnose, but just to analyze through the Jungian lens. So it does appear to be some degree of measurable physical as well as psychological aspect to the experiences. And again, it would be difficult, next to impossible, to differentiate what is the, what pieces of it are real and what pieces of it are psychological. And in my research, the people that seem to have the most difficulty dealing with these experiences usually had family and friends that were hostile or kind of negligent of dealing with them. So, just trying to bring these things out in the open and talk about it. Calling it psychic or psychological, for me, doesn't take away from its importance or relevance. You get the reaction from people like, oh, you don't think it's real, as if the symbolic is meaningless. You can pretend that you're a purely rational being 100% of the time, and that you're some follower of the Stoics or something, but emotions are real. And these experiences are real, and emotions start wars. Those are real. So.
Yeah, in that sense, that is one really good point that you brought up regarding that. Like that, indeed, even though like this is like psychological and like also in some sense symbolical like analysis, like through this Jungian lens, indeed, it doesn't mean that these experiences aren't real. So it's indeed good to point out. And I wanted to also like point out something regarding like the Jungian lens that I've read, and that is about that persistence and consistency of the UFO phenomena over time, and also cultures in the Jungian lens often like points towards the collective unconscious, and like one could say like archetypes as well. And there's going to be a bit about history as well that I will be going into with Raine here, and the others that are here can freely chime in regarding things if you have any like questions or anything. If you're listening, you can let Lynn know in the live stream itself. You can like post something if you want a question, and she will let us know about that in the round table. So just wanted to mention that as well still.
Yeah, to cut right into the issue, what we're going to talk about, like, what is this mechanism inside of us, individually and collectively, with a propensity to interpret the internal and external world symbolically and through symbols, and what that is pushing us toward. And that would definitely be tied into Jung's idea of the collective unconscious and tied to our place on the earth, which we will get into. And again, likely there's a whole lot of different things going on here, and we're just seeing sort of the tip of the iceberg. So we seem to be re-emerging into an older world.
Yeah, and regarding that also, like one thing that I can like bring up too regarding, because I already had mentioned about like the consistency through like times and cultures, and one good thing to bring up too is regarding like even ancient cultures, that UFOs had been documented. I mean, like a lot of people probably know about like ancient aliens and like these like kind of like, I guess, perspectives on it all, but a lot of these phenomena have been like documented by people like the Romans and the ancient Greeks as well, some Christians as well, and particularly the Romans were really interesting because they actually tried to study the phenomenon and not dismiss the claims. They wanted to like look like, well, I mean, is this something related to the gods, or like what is this stuff? Well, really connected to, and they would like look at it from, I guess, a kind of scientific lens, because they would be like, well, look at like, well, this is connected to like mass hysteria, or this is like, they try to actively like look at other stuff, what is going on there.
Yeah, try to approach it rationally. Rational, not always exactly the same thing as scientific. They certainly overlap. And yeah, we do have this regenerative image of UFOs over time. You could even look at like fairies and fae folk having a lot of overlapping experience and phenomena involved there. And now we just kind of have it shifted with this technological era. And as we look up towards the stars and outward into the universe, and it is like, you know, the foundation of a lot of the ancient alien stuff, the old gods depicted coming down in chariots and riding birds and all these sorts of things, you know. But I think Ancient Aliens kind of does a disservice to the whole thing. But and with the fairies and the fae folk, and in that line of thinking, the beings, you know, the entities inside the crafts or whatever, are often kind of seen as these big brothers to humanity, or our ancestors, or even our progenitors, sometimes the creators of human life. Just a few months ago, Dennis McKenna, brother of Terrence McKenna, was on Jordan Peterson, and they were kind of talking about this whole thing. He was discussing how, you know, he didn't think that the entities that he interacted with were literal visitors from another planet. If you listen to Terrence, he kind of plays both sides of the idea and all over the place, and, you know, tries to split the difference too. Doesn't really seem to take a hard stance. He just likes to play with ideas. I mean, he made a living blowing people's minds and being an orator, so he kind of liked to be diverse in his explanations and explore everything. And yeah, as far as the UFO being different from the being itself, it's obviously an overlapping but somewhat separate phenomena. We're going to tend to stick with, you know, discs in the sky kind of stuff, but it's gonna stray all over the place a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of like hard to like separate the two, because it's like an interrelated phenomena, kind of. With regarding like the UFO phenomena in general, there's always these entities involved in some way as well. And yeah, I don't know. I was kind of thinking about like bringing up some historical reports, and with historical I mean like from the Roman era, just to some points for those listening. to have a bit of an idea of like particular events that have been like identified by researchers that have looked into it, that don't have any explanation either from the Romans or modern. And there's one particular one that is very interesting, which is during the Second Punic War in Italy, that there was, because of the threat of Carthage, there was mass hysteria, and during that time there were multiple formations of what they pointed out to be objects or weapons, and different lights within the sky, which they had no explanation for, nor modern researchers have any explanation for. They couldn't be explained as just meteors or anything particular. One interesting thing about it is that apparently the people at the time explained these things as shields or similar like things such as a shield or particular type of like vase, from what I remember too, that has like a particular like shield or circular like of shape. It happened a lot during wartime within Rome with Carthage, but also regarding some of the other wars that happened as well. And sometimes these would intervene. For instance, you have the Roman army under L. Licinius Lucullus in 74 BC, talking about the UFO intervening or like coming very close to both of the armies that were fighting there, or also the report of the Sky Army in Judea, reported by Josephus in 65 AD. He mentioned that it involved chariots and armed battalions in the clouds. And a modern interpretation is that it resembles modern UFO sightings. And there's many more of these. Like, I have so many of these ancient ones that I have here in my notes. Maybe one last one to point out is a white-clad maiden, and with fiery objects surrounding her, seen in the sky, which is like a very interesting one too. Again, related to war and a threat to the people that were seeing it. So, and it seems to be a recurring theme in a lot of these things, that there seems to be like some psychological like thing related to stress or other things related to that. And later we also can get into like the zombie and Kraken phenomena too, because one interesting thing I can already bring up is that the Kraken, or like a dragon or serpent, was also often seen during these times. Often like before the UFO phenomena would happen, they would have these sightings of that and other stuff relating to undead and zombies even, but that gets into like later territory.
Yeah, I was reading the Jung book, and he was even kind of breaking up American history and talking about kind of the evolution of the modern UFO myth. And it was like, first there were these crafts in the sky, but it wasn't even alien. It was Soviet, or it was US technology, and then it turned into alien. And then it, and he had this kind of whole evolution mapped out. And I think there's so much more information available now, and the exploration of the topic has expanded so much. I think he was a little bit too cut and dry with his evolution of it, but the base idea is still there, that it changes and it grows and it flexes over time and with the times, and it kind of reflects social stresses of any given culture.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple. You go ahead, Base.
I just wanted to say, like, you can see that with like the shields that were mentioned, or the flying chariots with the Romans, and like indeed like how you're gonna point out too with like other stuff too, that like, yeah, you can see that within the findings that it indeed changes with the times.
Saw it described as a stone a lot. But so yeah, this first one is it's an article. I think this was on historychannel.com. So take what you will with that. But it's called America's First UFO Sighting. This is from 1639. It's an article from John Winthrop. So now he was a lawyer and a founding member of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, but he's retelling a story by other people. It was a collective account of a group of people. It sounded like they're on a raft and they saw a great light in the sky. They were following it for several hours. When it finally disappeared, they were 1 mile upstream, so against the current, with no recollection of how they moved that far. So they're losing track of their geographic orientation. There's possible time dilation. And it's just, shows that these sightings are often associated with any number of other paranormal activity. And they're often they come in lumps and groups all over kind of geocentric locations. Other sightings around the time included voices, zipping lights, and just, clusters of experiences around the area. There was a painting I uncovered. This is definitely some shit you'd see on Ancient Aliens TV show. It's called The Baptism of Christ by Maestro de Gelder from 1710. I really don't know what to make of it besides just describing it. And you see this floating disc in the sky with light shining down on a baptism ceremony. So whatever way you want to take that, but this imagery has been with us. And it shows that it does predate our World Wars era. So now I'm going to move into sort of a bit of American history, but just a real quick little rundown of important dates. Starting with 1890 to 1920, we have the Progressive Era in the U.S. That takes us to the end of World War I. During that time, in 1903, the Wright brothers have their first flight. World War I is 1914 to 1918, November 11th, 1918 being the peace treaty, once called Armistice Day. It's now Veterans Day in the U.S. World War II was 1939 to 1945. Just after World War II, in 1947, the term flying saucer is coined, and the U.S. government and Air Force begins officially and publicly investing time and money into research. So that just, means when they admitted it officially, basically. And originally it was seen more as these top secret projects of either the US or the Soviets. In 1947, you have the Roswell incident. In 1959, Jung releases his UFO book. I believe it was based on previous essays he wrote, though. He just finally wrapped it all up into a book and released it. And in 1994 is the Zimbabwe Aerial School incident, which I will talk about in a bit. And that has evolved to modern day. We have, these semi-frequent Pentagon press conferences in which our Congress releases selective information to the public. And then since I think 2017 was like the Tic Tac alien and these supposedly extremely frequent military radar sightings kind of gaining interest in the public eye thanks to pop culture media like Joe Rogan, those kinds of things.
One thing I think also good to point out is, I think also with like the 19th century sightings, like how they were often described as way different, having propellers and being like still ahead of the time, but like nothing really like how UFOs are described now. Generally, like it seems like they're always just ahead of the times where this phenomena has been witnessed. And I think that's one particular interesting fact regarding that, minus, well, obviously the lights that are also seen, which haven't changed that much, but the technological aspect of it seems to be changing. And then you have indeed during World War II also, and also World War I, you had reports of people in the military that called these things Foo Fighters, where they would be seeing these craft that they just couldn't identify during the war. And there's been plenty of reports of that. I've added some of these links to that also in the description of the video if anyone is interested in going a little bit deeper into the subject as well.
We're not going to cover every single one of those, but they are all interesting reads. Another one is the UFO Fever in America article. And so this is interesting. It's just kind of it just shows how these things kind of infect the public narrative and how rumor is also kind of a vessel for these things. So this is 1896, less than 10 years before the Wright brothers' first flight. It starts in Sacramento, California. People see this airship, and via the news outlets, it sweeps across the Midwest by rumor and just turns into hysteria. So at first it starts out as this full cigar-shaped airship, no steam or combustion power. It has flapping wings. And there's, quotes and things in the articles. It's supposedly from a wealthy patent holder, a dentist, and his lawyer is speaking on his behalf. And this kind of spreads all throughout California. And then an Oregon newspaper gets a hold of the story and just uses it to call California a land of hysteria and barbarism and grifters. And then, it's all these variety of different newspapers talking about this event as it travels through the Midwest, supposedly. They all kind of have a common core, whatever the reality was, if there was a reality to it at all. The stories of people trying to grapple with this concept of these massive things in the sky. Some people describing it as 50 feet long, some people 250, 500. And that, if there is a reality to it, that just shows how it's such a new concept that if you tried to look at something in the sky that you didn't understand, you have no basis or frame of reference in order to describe it. So you're trying to figure out how far away is it and how big is it. Even mathematically, you can't really grasp that. Some people describing it as a meteor, some people saying it's animal shaped. And by the end of the article, these reports are just degenerating to pure fantasy and hysteria. There's people opening fire on it in the streets just because it was so viscerally upsetting to them, or that it went off into some land in the Arctic inhabited by a lost tribe of Israel. So it just, the whole world of fantasy just gets wrapped up into it. And also, these news outlets are trying to sell a story. There's a piece of it too, of course. One article tells of an African-American man who believed it to be Noah's Ark, repurposed with propellers. So now it has propellers, and come to free his people south of the Mississippi. And finally, in a Dallas newspaper article, it's said to hit a windmill and explode. The pilot, now identified as a completely different person, had documents on him in hieroglyphics and that he was from Mars. So, newspapers just ran with it. It sparks wonder and hysteria across the Midwest, exemplary of this creation point between mind and matter, fantasy and reality, and how it spreads through both the individual and the collective, and how rumor is a vessel for myth. And then, by the 19th and 20th centuries, with all our new technology, post-World War I and II technology, this advancement in technology and these global wars that divide the world create new world powers, a new way of living, a completely new paradigm, and with it, the construction of a new myth, but with repurposed and updated and timeless attributes. And now, with the new pieces of it are this fixation on science and the domination of nature.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, we're not trying to explain 100% of the UFO phenomena or debunk anything, just kind of exploring this Jungian lens that is often overlooked or demonized.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that that regarding that, there is definitely a particular, I guess, like this Jungian layer to it, but to just restate that once more, that even Jung had pointed out like that these phenomena can be real and we just project something onto this phenomena, or it can be or some of them at least can be also psychological in nature. So it's very difficult to really say in that sense what is exactly what, but we do know that regarding like the myths and a lot of the stories and rumors surrounding it, and like you could kind of say it like the mythology that has been created around it, that does seem to more concretely be pointing towards something.
Yeah, and even with that airship story, like, seems pretty obviously that the newspapers got a hold of it or are trying to sell a story. So that's part of it too. We're not naive. So always keep that caveat in mind that this is any number of phenomena could be happening. So the last one here in this section that I was going to talk about is the Zimbabwe incident. This was at the aerial school. So there was a documentary a few years ago called Aerial Phenomena. It's ARIEL, so it's the name of the school. And this is kind of an update on when it actually happened in 1994. So when it happened in 94, there was at the time a very well-respected psychologist, John Mack, that went out there to look into these things. And since then, he kind of went down the UFO rabbit hole, and he's been kind of exiled from academia since then. But you know, he was pretty well respected before he dipped his toes in this. And the Aerial School, or the Aerial Phenomena documentary, just released a couple years ago, is kind of an update on that. They tracked down a lot of these kids and spoke to them as adults, and you know, none of them denied the incident. And just January 6th, I believe, Abby Martin on her podcast Dosed had the producer of the documentary on and talked to him a little bit too. So that was interesting. But okay, so Zimbabwe. The school incident was not an isolated thing. There were several sightings around the same time in the area. But it's interesting that it's not like, you know, a center of pop culture. This is, while kind of a wealthy area in Zimbabwe, from what I understand, it's still like a lot of farmers and stuff. Maybe a few of them had satellite dishes, but they weren't really, you know, entrenched in Western pop culture. So, and during recess time, the teachers were all in a staff meeting. So it was children only out on the playground, a variety of ages. They saw not only a craft come down and land, but beings come out of it. And, you know, because of the in Zimbabwe, you know, there's wild animals and stuff all over the place. So it kind of lands in this forbidden zone outside the fences where the kids aren't allowed to go. Some of the children describe it as a silver disc with vibrating or flashing lights. One person recalled it landed on a stone. Another person said it looked like a stone with water flowing over it, with the sun reflecting off the water. Some people describe it smooth, some people don't. So, you know, their minds are trying to comprehend what this thing is. Most people report some kind of vibrating sound or a buzzing or like a flute. And these beings wore all black, so they had kind of clothes on. You could see these very white faces, deep black eyes, very smooth faces. This is like the typical gray alien representation. And even like the way the craft move, you hear this a lot with the stories. It kind of zips around and disappears and reappears, or it's hazy, or it's like a slow, you're trying to see it and it's like a slow frame rate. There's all sorts of weird things about how we perceive these things. and they were roughly as tall as a sixth grader. Some people said that one of them had hair. Other people all the kids drew pictures of this. There was like 60 kids that drew pictures of it, and those are just the kids that drew pictures of it. So there's way more children that either didn't want to talk about it, or their parents didn't want them to be interviewed, or this or that. It said a lot of the kids had never even heard of UFO or aliens before that, because again, they weren't really entrenched in Western culture. One child recalled looking into its eyes, and it looked back like a woman who had never seen a child before. So, they were frightened. Another child said the eyes were pulling her in. They could look away and the feelings would leave, but they were drawn into it. It was very difficult for some people with families who disregarded the event or tried to frame it into their perspective, sort of like a fundamental religious perspective. They interviewed a variety of people a few times throughout their lives. Most of them just wanted to get on with their lives and, try to not be too public about it. But one unidentified person said it was the devil, basically satanic images, basically, and they refused to be interviewed. I was told one person described it as more angelic and all sorts of in between, obviously. And these beings communicated with certain children kind of telepathically. And while varied, they all mentioned a theme of not only environmentalism, of how we are damaging the earth, but also how we are damaging ourselves as a species. And one child remarked, "I think in space there is no love, but here there is." And it was very frightening, but even one girl said that she wished to see them again. So, some of these kids and families moved out of the area completely. Some didn't want to be interviewed. Many of them still struggle with the experience. Very few of them are super open and public about it. The youngest of the children, the school didn't even allow them to be interviewed, so that they were like, just let these kids be. It was a well-funded school, very multicultural, varying religions of all backgrounds, including more local and indigenous. In that Aerial School documentary, they go out to some of the kind of, people that still live by the old ways to talk about it. And even one of the adults, they pulled out a picture that he drew as a child and put it on the table, and he just took a blank piece of paper, covered it up, and left the interview. He didn't want to be interviewed anymore, didn't want to talk about it. And so, they feel a lot of shame with this event. So they don't like being the outcast, So that is, if anyone wants to see that, that's called the Aerial Phenomena is the documentary itself. You can look up Aerial School. You can start on Wikipedia. It's all over the internet. And if you Google it too, you can find the pictures that the kids drew.
Yeah, and but it makes a lot of sense regarding the kids that they wouldn't want, especially the young ones, to be interviewed regarding this. It's probably frightening and disturbing enough for them.
One of the adult women didn't even tell her new husband that she was a part of this thing. So most people just wanted to get on with their lives.
Yeah, kind of makes sense. It just kind of makes me wonder, I don't think there's an answer to it, but just one question, just generally, I want to pose is just why these particular people? It's just something that's been on my mind after looking into this, but I doubted that we can find an answer to that. But it would be something if anyone listens to this to think about why those people. Is there something? Is there something in common? But yeah, I don't think we can find anything out of that, especially if people don't want to be interviewed or even talk about it. So yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So that's about it for me on sort of historical reports. If you want to move on to the next grouping.
yeah, I only have I focus mostly on like the reports up till World War II. Really dipped a little bit into the Cold War era as well, but mostly just the reports that I already mentioned. So yes, we can like start with like the next section. Really like go into that. Maybe I just want to say like. Well, looking into a lot of this, especially after this aerial like school like the incident regarding Zimbabwe and stuff, and looking into all this alien stuff, man, I had some dreams after regarding this stuff. So it's like for anyone who's gonna dig deep into it, be careful, man. You might get a visit. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know if you want to take it away with the next part, or if I should do that.
Sure. I mean, I'll get us started here. So this is kind of a little hodgepodge of a group. I guess it kind of upgrades on previous talks on zombies and krakens. And I don't know if we want to try the pie thing, Proto-Indo-European thing. That's up to you. I got the notes out if you want to. Or we can do a future video on it, or we can just invite people to the Discord to talk about it if they're interested. But I'll give you a couple minutes to decide, and I'll start with the zombies thing.
Yeah, maybe I can just say regarding like the Kraken thing, just that kind of like is indeed like an update on like the Kraken live stream that we had done, which is kind of like something that grew out of the collective unconscious live stream. So if anyone is like interested in that kind of stuff, it's up on YouTube on the channel. But yes, go ahead, Raine.
Yeah, all these talks kind of grow out of each other and link back to each other. So yeah, we have the reemerging prevalence of the zombie myth. Obviously, you'd have to live under a rock to not be infected by that one. So I was listening to Jung to Live By, that YouTube channel. They're talking about zombies in this model of fantasy versus imagination. So fantasy looks towards the past, imagination towards the future. And they weren't saying that fantasy is useless, but if you break it down to those simplest parts, then it is kind of it's not very constructive for you. If you look at, break down these zombie stories and the zombie mythos, right? It's kind of this post-apocalypse setting fixated on an event from the past that which we cannot escape. So society has crumbled with little hope of being rebuilt or great struggle to do so after the impact of a zombie virus. The zombies, masses of the population are rendered without their humanity, and they are, the kind of tearing society apart and infecting other people and all that. So imagination looks towards the future with raw creative potential. This UFO with its advanced technology makes us look towards the future. And they've got the zombie healing beam, kind of clearing out this zombie virus and making us stop fixate on the past and look towards the future. The UFO being this kind of cosmic space egg, it's the modern iteration of McKenna's transcendental object at the end of time. If you've listened to Andy McKenna, I'm sure you've heard him talk about that. I will touch on that a little bit later, group 5, in case you haven't, and kind of break down the more rational approach to what that possibly was, instead of just going full McKenna with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about it for me. So yeah, Base, you want to take the floor and elaborate on any of those?
Yeah, regarding like maybe like the zombies, I can start with that. So like yeah, so the zombies and the undead. So like, one of the things I want to like point out too is like that the zombies or the undead, like how we all know, they're obsessed with brains. They're eating flesh, overcome by instinct. No thought or free will is also something that occurs. Fear of the unconscious and repression of instinct could be linked to it, from what I've seen as well, from like a psychological lens. If you look at the like psychological meaning, if this kind of stuff comes up in dreams or like really within the culture as a meme as it does. Also, Jung to Live By pointed it to unlived life. We can also then think about lack of life force and meaning within that sense too. But there is something else that is very interesting about phenomena as well, which is that within ancient Rome and Greece, for instance, I've put some of the links in the description about that. There was, before the phenomena regarding UFOs, there were reports of mass hysteria over zombies and undead, and there were these kind of like reports that would kind of spread like a wildfire in areas where people would be completely hysterical about zombies or undead rising from the grave, so they would put rocks or other heavy objects on the bodies, so to keep them from rising up. And generally these were seen as mass hysteria by the elites, especially like the philosopher types. They would see this as just mass hysteria about the undead. Then next, what tended to come up at the same time or after often would be the Kraken. This is really like the Kraken phenomena. So the Kraken can also show up as a dragon or serpent or a water serpent. It's kind of like how we pointed out in the Kraken live stream, a symbol of instinct that kind of comes up when the waters have become stagnant or the winds have died down, and it links to snake consciousness, which is like linked to the instinctual part of the brain, how Jung has pointed out. And there seems to be this recurring pattern within history of Kraken, zombies, and UFOs. There was also a picture from the progressive era that showed this. You could kind of see it as like a meme from that time, where they pointed out like that they had defeated the Kraken, this like sea serpent Kraken being, and there was a depiction of zombies in the same image, and then the UFOs being responsible for the Wright brothers creating airplanes, which was like a meme of the time. And similar patterns can be seen in history with like Greece and Rome and the progressive era, and it seems to be popping up too. Other forms of like the Kraken, what to think about would be sea monsters, think like Godzilla or something, or the Kaiju coming up from the depths of the water. And then we can go into like the aspect of the Greys a bit. Big brain points to massive intellect, because they have these big, massive brains, small, like genderless bodies, no sex organs or anything, no muscles, and pretty skeletal. And then, within the culture also, there's like also these like alien Kraken hybrid types, like in the movie Independence Day, but also different types that kind of do the same thing. think like aliens from the movie Aliens, or Alien, the other movie, which basically is like instinctual monsters that drag bodies back to the queen, the mother, and yeah, and from what you can kind of see with that is also like, that these phenomena kind of occur before major wars. The Kraken, for instance, also before World War One, and also like within the ancient times, and then the zombie, and then you have the UFO phenomena coming up with like, for instance, in the 19th century, flying ships resembling sea vessels and steam-powered ships being in the sky. But also, this kind of begs the question then, and that's kind of my personal interpretation of this. Like, well, is this like a pattern that we're seeing here? It is possible that the zombie undead symbolize a state of repression of instinct, and the Kraken dragon represents the repressed instinct bubbling up before a war, or before like a big change happens in general, and then the war or this like other event of big change could be seen as a psychic manifestation, kind of outlet for repressed instincts, and the UFOs could be seen as trying to like bring us back into wholeness, and kind of like to make things whole again. And I guess but regarding to that, it kind of ties into the Jungian perspective, that like archetypes are symbolic representations of the collective unconscious and can manifest in response to social anxieties and fears. So looking at it from a Jungian perspective, this theory would check out, but the thing is that like it's really like my interpretation of this, even though there has been a book written that I also have linked in the description that says something about this phenomena regarding UFOs, and where they see the same pattern of them coming up in wars, or before or after wars, or during times of a lot of social stress in general.
Well, that leads pretty cleanly into the next grouping of war and social stress. You want to keep marching on?
Yeah, unless you have anything to add, or anyone here present in the round table has anything to add about that one.
Yeah, all right. I'll get us started then. So yeah, basically kind of what you just said, like these images of wholeness, symbolic and mythic images of wholeness, appear during times of obstacle and difficulty. And we're reading Man and His Symbols, and kind of at the end of that, Man and His Symbols had several authors, so I'm not sure if this was Jung himself, but they're even kind of talking about how these experiences can show up to guide the evolutionary process. It's an interesting thought, it's a little out there. It's an interesting thought. It's kind of, you could tell when the book was written, we were kind of just getting a hold of a lot of these, like quantum physics kind of ideas and stuff. So I don't really know how to handle a lot of that stuff, but it's interesting to think about. It's kind of like this idea that Vervaeke touches on, how it's kind of like the out of Africa theory, and there's these climate issues that usually propel mankind and restructure society, and how shamanism would emerge out of some of these times, and that would help these tribes through these harsh times. You were more likely to thrive and survive if your tribe had a shaman than without it. And you can kind of also see this in like our origins of mythology, say with the Proto-Indo-European people, kind of bootstraps language. And then into the Bronze Age, writing comes out of this. And then, the strange and variety of phenomena surrounding alchemy and how out of that chemistry and science emerged. So we have these strange mythic images in which propels humanity to new ages and new eras. Even with the Kraken myth, it is said that kind of got updated and rebooted to the dragon hoarding his gold, which, kind of like the end of The Hobbit. But it's much older than The Hobbit, obviously. And the dragon can often be symbolic of the ego. You kind of see this image of these big egos would be kind of in the forms of institutions withholding wealth and power and blocking the flow, kind of that Taoist interpretation of the flow.
Yeah. And that comes in indeed also within like the stagnant waters. And regarding the pie stuff, if you wanna talk about it, I'm okay with it. The Proto-Indo-European
I hadn't opened
stuff.
this up. So yeah, I was going through the Proto-Indo-European mythologies, right? So the reconstructed myths, but you can see the remnants and the lineage of these through history, but there is kind of a basic core. And you can kind of see from pi to UFOs, there are this core of mythic attributes that kind of reinvent themselves and appear to different societies. So a lot of this stuff is things we've touched on in previous videos, videos that I wasn't in before I started talking on these videos. But it kind of starts with, the idea of the divine twin, the conscious and the unconscious. These were usually the twin gods or the brother gods. When in balance and proper unison, it would create the third. They called it Trito in Proto-Indo-European. So Trito was often the culture hero of the thunder god, wielding lightning to remedy or the blockages of society would be the interpretation of it. So the divine twin would often be pictured as chariots or as Trito riding his chariot through the heavens. And then the divine twin out of bounds, as we kind of call it, it's riding the unwieldy chariot. It's when you're trying to ride the chariot, but you don't have the horses working together. It's when you're conscious and unconscious are out of balance, and it causes massive destruction. You could think of kind of the myth of Icarus or the myth of Phaeton. So lightning was often associated with fire. It probably came about when they would see lightning come down to the ground and strike a tree, and that would create fire and clear out, spark these wildfires. In the natural flow of things, this would clear out the old and bring in the new, fertile grounds for things to grow on. And it would also bring rains. You think of the Taoist idea of flow, all things change, all things flow. Water can flow too fast or it can be blocked and not at all. Both of those are bad. You want things to flow properly. So the Kraken or the serpent in the Proto-Indo-European withholds these waters from people. It's not like the Abrahamic flood. So Trito, as the culture hero thunder god, would fight the Kraken to make the waters flow again, to clear these blockages. And you could kind of see that in the geography and the climate environment that they lived in was susceptible to droughts. So lightning storms bringing thunder would break up these hard times of drought and bring in the rains and the good times. And the sea serpent or the Kraken would later in some forms be changed into the dragon guarding the treasures, like I touched on earlier. So it's going to be a bit difficult to wrap your head around just listening to this. So if you go on Wikipedia and look up, Proto-Indo-European mythology and get yourself familiarized with this is the best way I could say to try and comprehend it, because the skeleton key it's going to be helpful, but it's going to be a bit much to fully digest. So if you take that core of mythology, right, and let's assume that it is a mythic function within ourselves to interpret the world, both internal and external, symbolically. So let's fast forward to today and reinvent that. Let's upgrade it with the way that we live our lives, namely through technology. So you see this UFO craft. In a way, this is the merging of conscious and unconscious, mind and matter, organic and technology. This mechanical craft being driven by an organic being. And then you see this even in like the Ancient Aliens, people touch on this, like UFOs described as lightning and fire and celestial chariots, right? They can cause destruction like lightning, or they appear as fire in the sky, or the celestial chariots, as they're always called. And then the third Trito being the culture hero that leads the way, as culture heroes do. They're the model for balancing the opposites in society and properly integrating all these things. And ours, is integrating the proper balance of technology and nature, riding the chariot and wielding the lightning and fire as his tools to clear out the blockages. The out of bounds example here would be, technology run amok. And again, the Kraken kind of represents these natural instincts not integrated, coming up to clear the block flow, but in a destructive manner.
Yeah, basically, and it seems to be like about integrating and bringing these two parts together. So it's kind of like, again, like the unification of opposites, and in that way, like you could see it also like in the very beginning of this talk too, like how you pointed out regarding like the Iron Curtain, like how there's this like division, or like this split in like between East and West, but also like consciousness and unconsciousness, and these different things like nature and technology. And generally, it seems to be pointing towards trying to mend that gap and to have both of them work together. So I guess in that sense, like, the third, so like Trito could be born out of that. So then there is like a balanced, figure of balance, kind of. It's born out of all of this.
Yeah, because the Kraken it'll pop up and it'll clear the flow. It'll clear the blockages, but it's a Kraken. It's an instinctual creature. It will do it in a destructive manner. So it's best to do it before the Kraken is forced to wake up and do it himself.
Yeah, and it would, in that sense also, like, we don't have to have like then the fight between like that would be often depicted like Zeus or like against like particular like Kronos, for instance, is one figure that is also originally depicted as a serpent, and there's like the eagle fighting the serpent, and kind of like that symbology in it. And then you also have like Apollo fighting a particular serpent too, and then there's all these like cultural Trito figures then fighting the serpent as well, to like to overcome it, and like or like they have overcome it and integrate it, but then they fight it to like keep the destruction from happening. But it is indeed best to make sure that the Kraken doesn't have to come up in the first place. So then we would just integrate it, and then none of the other things would be necessary. So we could kind of do it in like a, I guess, conscious manner, instead of I guess something from the collective unconscious coming up and just taking over and just being like, just fuck all this shit and just clear it all, kind of thing. So it could be like more I guess, precise about like, yeah, this is shit that we want to keep, and that's shit that we want to throw away, so we don't end up throwing out the baby with the bathwater kind of thing.
You see the same imagery with like the Tower card in tarot, how the lightning bolt of illumination coming from the sky and destroying this tower, and there's the good and bad aspects of a tarot card. Like if you're doing the spreads, it's like whether it's upright or reversed, and your tower can be destroyed if you didn't build it very well, or if you built it with arrogance. But sometimes you can just get away with the tower being remodeled a little bit. And the card after the tower was the star. Covered that a little bit in the last video with the feminine earth, the earthly feminine figure. So yeah, maybe some of that made sense to some people. Probably as best as I could kind of fix things together. But yeah, just go and check out that Proto-Indo-European mythology page.
Yeah, there's something about like the some of the stuff that we touched upon regarding like the Kraken and like some of the Indo-European stuff, but like going down like the weasel hole of the Indo-European mythology would be indeed like a very good thing to do. There's like a lot of good sources out there on YouTube too, people and like anthropologists talking about it, actual researchers. So if you search for it, there's some good stuff out there that would really help one out, especially regarding like the Curios kind of stuff too, and the divine twins and kind of dysfunction. But I would also kind of like suggest regarding that to just read Man and His Symbols as well, because it gives like the other half of the key regarding like this balancing of like consciousness and unconsciousness and these different opposites.
Yeah, and then kind of we mix it in with a little bit of Taoism regarding like the flow of all things too. And a lot of the stuff we're talking about is it's like I haven't watched Ancient Aliens in years because it's pedantic. But a lot of the stuff we do talk about probably shows up in Ancient Aliens. We're just not talking about nuts and bolts crafts, because there's a different twist on this phenomena. But so continuing on with like war and social stress, I'll just talk about the progressive era. We're kind of going through a reemergence of another progressive era right now. So a lot of this stuff is going to kind of apply as it did then and as it is now. So it was like 1890 to 1920 in the US, leading up to the end of World War I. This was like the beginning of the age of mass media, where news publication became cheap enough for mass consumption, largely thanks to advertising. And there's a very famous book that came out of this era called Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. I was doing some research on it again. I had no idea the kind of heavy political agenda behind it until I did research this time, but we can kind of brush that to the side. It's a piece of narrative fiction. It's a fictional story, but it's muckraker journalism. So this guy worked undercover at a meatpacking plant and just saw how terrible these conditions were, not only for the workers but for the animals. People eating sick animal meat and stuff. And he used this experience to build the narrative around sort of exposing all these things. And prior to that, the media would be so tightly controlled by these titans of industry that none of this would have ever been allowed to be to kind of reach the public ear and be published. Sure, a lot of people will see similarities in this to the way that marijuana was suppressed, or any number of other ways in which these things have been kind of swept under the rug. So the progressive era exposed issues with labor, urbanization, environment, with society left up to these titans of industry. And you saw a lot of things come out of this era, like the FDA, the Pure Food and Drug Act, the Federal Reserve, unions, etc. At the time, a lot of these institutions broke up the quote unquote stagnancy, the blockages, Now we see the degree to which those institutions are helping is coming into question. That gets a little political and controversial depending on the way you see things, but just try and keep it the most obvious and least controversial example I can think of, just happened recently. An NIH published study, right? The National Institute of Health put out a study saying that Lucky Charms were healthier than eggs and steak. Now, no offense to vegetarians and vegans, but I think we all know that's a bunch of bullshit. And you also see the push to solve childhood obesity or obesity in general with medications and surgery rather than healthy living. And the kind of this one aspect of the boomer tower that we call it, there's the boomer health, which is just living off of sugar and corn syrup and processed carbs, and the craft food sponsored food pyramid that people used as a model of nutrition. Again, all this is just the tip of the iceberg. I just pick that because I find it to be the least controversial one. I think we could all agree that a lot of the common and normal diet is not healthy. So all these institutions have become a lot of the things they were fighting against. Go ahead, Base.
Yeah, no, I do think so, and I it makes me kind of think about like what you had said regarding what the aliens in the Zimbabwe incident said about like what we're doing to ourselves, kind of as well. And I think that ties
it's not just the environment; it's what we're doing to ourselves too.
Yeah.
So, again, all these social and environmental movements, unfortunately, they all, whatever great intentions they start with, they all become co-opted and politicized. So we can't, we're not voting our way out of a lot of these problems, I guess is what I'm getting down to. I'm not saying don't vote. I'm not saying don't be informed, but we can't just leave it up to the politicians. It's got to be a grassroots kind of thing, we got to get back to basics: food, the environment, how we live. If that means turning off your Netflix for a couple hours a night, then I think it would probably be worth it. Don't buy that next VR headset maybe and go outside instead. And there's a little bit of the Jordan Peterson clean your room thing, get your life in order, get your affairs in order, go back to priorities before you start telling people how to run the world. And I'm still doing the same thing. I still have work to do on that. So that's why I'm not like saying a lot of specifics about this. And I don't claim to know the way out, but if we the grassroots movement, if we work together on this, if we show the people in charge what our priorities really are. Because like if we stop buying dumb shit, they'd stop selling it because they wouldn't profit off of it, right? So that's my look on things, and that's oversimplified, and I know it's not that simple and there's more to it, but we do have more power in this than we often give ourselves credit for. And throwing your hands in the air and saying that it's too late to change everything isn't helping.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that kind of ties into like the dichotomy between like the zombies looking to the past and then the UFOs with looking towards the future as well. But like but also like the progressive era too, like with the UFOs and generally like some of that came up too. But what is interesting, what I want to point out regarding the progressive era too, is that within that time it said that the Kraken got defeated. It like that culturally was depicted as such. So and then just the UFOs came, but there was no like war for a while till World War II broke out. But I don't know, what I wanted to bring up with that is that we can ourselves break up these like stagnancies and these blockages. So the Kraken is no longer kind of like needed to do it itself, and we can like break up these stagnant waters ourselves, and then get things flowing again. And then yeah, that's kind of the gist of it from what I saw with that.
Start with yourself.
Yep.
Get your own stuff in order first, and help the people around you.
This reminds me a bit also in the movie The World That Wars. I think it was of Wells, if I remember correctly. That it was a movie also with Tom Cruise, like that the alien invaded and they start to consume human and they become expansive and they came with lightning, if I remember correctly. But then, like humans through carrying their microorganism that was lethal for these invaders, and also in the way what these invaders wake up to humans as the will to survive, as a reverse way of life that kills at the same way but is part of life as well. Like they survived and they were transformed by this meeting.
Learning the hard way.
Yes, it was
yeah.
a bit. Yes, they came in the Kraken way a bit, but yes, and in the thing that you were saying a while ago, Rain Fox, I read one very nice quote that it says the harmony of the unseen is greater of the harmony of the seen that is being able to be shown. Things happen many times in ways that are not shown and in a natural way, and they find out the right way to make it out. Like this gives me hope many times.
You mean in a way that there's like things at play that that we do not know about or can see that it's like, I guess, playing in a larger sense than we humans can comprehend, something along these lines. Do you mean, Anastasios?
Yes, like the phenomenons of the things we are seeing, we are explaining, and sometimes we just have images of them. They have an iceberg under them. And this iceberg also may work towards good sometimes. And if we try to approach also the part of the iceberg to bring out this harmony, it may bring peace to the world that we see, in a sense. When we say, I feel I did my part, where is this part from? It is not still done to be seen out, so it comes from somewhere deeper.
Seeing things with a new set of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of this ties into like I guess the messages that like the UFOs are coming with, but also like in some sense kind of like the symbolism of it all. How where you were touching upon to Raine regarding bringing the opposites together, and it's kind of like showing in a way too, like that things are much larger than what we think it is, and that there's like more going on really.
So yeah, the progressive era is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. It's a good kind of micro and macrocosm, because again, like I said, I think we're going through a lot of those things again right now. So with that progressive era, again, that was like the social stresses. So during then and since then and up till now, saw the dramatic increase in these UFO sightings reported at military bases. Military and missile silos is another common one. You know, stories of how they just turn off the electronics and these military silos have just lose total control. And also having these sightings in the oceans and underwater, like they see the crafts go underwater. And again, that kind of hints at like space and the ocean kind of being these symbols for the unconscious. And all of the sort of radar blip evidence and all that stuff, again, being made widely known with these ever increasingly more frequent Pentagon briefings and shows like Joe Rogan. And it is kind of representative of a fear that there are powers and technologies that we both have and have yet to harness that are powerful and dangerous beyond imagination. But it also funnels into a kind of hope that there is a power greater than ourselves to keep us in line before we wipe each other out. So that'll segue nicely into this doozy of a group 5, symbolism, meaning, and impact. But before we go on, if there's anything else you want to add, Base?
Regarding that, no, I think we can segue nicely into group 5 regarding that. And looking at the time right now, we're an hour and 23 minutes in, so we could even go a bit further than that, depending on than group 5 if you're up for it even. But
yeah,
let's
I think
see.
we should. I think we should take a good crack at group 5 here.
Yeah.
If you have time to, and then we'll have time ourselves to process this information. You know, we bounce some ideas off of each other, and then we can kind of regroup. Start with group 5 again, because it's obviously the most important one.
Yeah.
On the next one, and finish it up there, which is good because I needed some more time for the last 3 groups, anyways. So
yeah.
I'll just get us started here with the basics. You know, this UFO. It's this totality symbol, kind of, that's guiding us back to the symbol of wholeness, the mandala that Jung talks about. It is like the integration of all the opposites. The totality symbol, I kind of see it as this self-correcting software that, again, tends towards wholeness. You also see it pop up with the crop circles. You know, the crop circles are very mandalic. In terms of these opposites, you know, you see earth and sky or earth and space. They are this technology that travels freely between. They are both male and female. You know, the cigars are the more phallic shapes, the oval, the more feminine, the more womb-like shape. And the grays are the non-gendered, whereas the Pleiadians, you know, it's kind of like the elves, the space elves, are almost more hermaphroditic. You know, they look like the Tolkien elves, like Legolas, like very feminine features. It is the organic and the technological, integrating technology properly and maintaining the ecological balance. It's also an interesting way where when you interpret these things literally, how it turns into, you know, horrors beyond human comprehension. Or we're seeing the, you know, like the Neuralink thing, you know, combining the organic and the technological. It's just like, what the hell are we doing? And yeah, you know, if only there was some way there's something, nature could show us things were out of balance. Like, say, if frogs had birth and gender defects, wouldn't that be crazy if someone talked about that?
Yeah. I just have one to add to it. I was just before the stream looking into some of the UFO encounters, and I saw one interesting one that a man in a lavender field was outside a craft landed looking like an egg basically, and two beings came out of it, and he just couldn't move. He just was he just couldn't move, and they pointed something at him. They just looked at him and they were like, huh, and then they just went back inside the craft, and it just disappeared. And it was looking like an egg, and then they had found like a high amount of calcium where the craft was, so high that nothing would grow there in that particular spot. But it was egg shaped, so that made me immediately think about like cosmic egg kind of like symbology, which is also like a symbol of wholeness, but more in initial stages kind of thing.
And the saucers just look like a space egg. It's another way of looking at it. It's all just this kind of hardwired symbolism we have in us. We talked about the Iron Curtain a little bit, the political and economic ideologies that split the globe. That's another one of these opposites. So it's not just a wholeness in the individual, but it's a tendency towards wholeness in the world, the collective, right? So there's both of those going on.
Yeah, there's both of those going on, yes.
And then even as you see interesting thought experiments that form out of this too. So we're thinking about heading into space. And so what do you do when you land on a planet? You got to start society in the image of the person running the crusade, right? So what's Elon Musk going to do when he gets to Mars, And it gives us a glimpse through this thought experiment of what we think society should be. It gets you to think about these problems, but we should more be thinking about how do we fix the society and the problems here. But it's like the way your brain kind of makes you think about these in a roundabout fashion, makes you get closer to the center at least. So again, these beings, they present themselves as the new apex predator to these global military powers that have emerged. And that, like all these things, there's two sides to that coin. You either receive the message or you start launching missiles at each other. So it's a fine line.
Yeah, or there's like a Battle of Los Angeles incident too, like where the military was like shooting at the UFOs, like fucking crazy. They went completely crazy at them. They thought it was the Japanese, but yeah, that one was quite an incident as well.
And they humble our military presence and technology because again, it's always just on the edge of our comprehension. It makes us look into the future. They have this technological prowess. They often have like psychic powers too. So it humbles us as the apex predator, and again brings hope that there is some force that's keeping us in line. There's the one kind of, it's not really a conspiracy, but I guess you hear with the conspiracy folks that we dropped the bombs on Japan, and that was like the universe was, or all the space aliens were like, oh shit, these guys got real big guns now. We got to go down and make sure they don't wipe themselves out, either because they're part of some galactic space confederation that we're being tested to see if we can join, or because they created us, or whatever line of lore you want to go down with that. And this all kind of... Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Or can this be like a reverse hero archetype? Like a hero archetype that needs to bring solution out and like to rise up against, but because it is so much cleansed inside and sedated, it comes in revenge from the back door as the necessity for distraction, in a way, as judgment.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the War of the Worlds thing, huh? And that one's interesting because they come as the space aliens, but the bad ones often have a Kraken-like appearance. So they're from space, but they still have all that instinctual, symbolic representation to them.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Same with like these crafts that was in War of the Worlds too. That these crafts basically are they look like krakens themselves with like tentacles, and these pods, these tripods that they have, that they're moving like this, and then this is kind of like symbology in that, and then the beings themselves too, and also with Independence Day, for instance, and different like bad aliens in general like that too. There seems to be like this particular connection to the Kraken like alien hybrid.
That was Mass Effect too. The techno squids.
Yeah, indeed.
So yeah, this all kind of, it all reminds me of, you know, the unus mundus, so the Latin term. So I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but, and you know, there's the kind of more, I guess, spiritual way of thinking about it, but we can look at these things rationally too. It is like the union of matter and mind, that they are of the same source, right? And the separation of two would at best be a fine line. Even at the very least, viewed psychologically, it would be like how we interpret the external matter of the world through the internal cogs of our mind. And it's in this space where Jung would say that kind of synchronicities appear important to us, even if you don't want to think of them as any kind of real, you know, psychic or spiritual phenomena. These UFOs would kind of be a piece of ourselves whose expression has been suppressed, slipping out of the ego awareness and projected onto the eternal screen of the world that we live in.
Yeah, and I think it also one thing what I remembered regarding the Zimbabwe incident too. I think we had talked about it before, Raine, privately, about like how it was flickering until more and more of the kids were present, and that really stood out to me as well. That I was like, that's kind of interesting. Like, why did they need more kids to be present to be more stable of an image that they would see?
It's even like the individual representation kind of gaining momentum as it enters the collective, or something like that.
Yeah, basically.
So yeah, all this impact points to, you know, this is challenging our traditional beliefs, our institutions. You know, it's creating these counter paradigms to religion, to technology, to hyperliteralism. It confounds our science and our understanding of physics, right, and technology and the combustion engine and everything else. It challenges the stance of fundamental religion and literalism and rationalism, and it's playing the trickster on what we think we know. The trickster is often a healing mechanism.
Yeah, and I think regarding that, like the trickster is also like often connected to like the animal side as well, so instinct again, but also like this mechanism of homeostasis. So
homeostasis, that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah, and I don't know, like it just reminds me also of like encounters that that I've read into, and like for instance also McKenna, of some of the stuff that he talked about. It seems to be like a trickster like essence to these beings as well.
Yeah, Joe Rogan talks about one of his DMT experiences, and he gets in that space, and it's all the trickster clowns, and they're all flipping him off. And he, initially has a kind of hostile feeling towards it, but then he realizes they're like making fun of him and his ego. And once he kind of releases that, then they turn into the more kind of playful tricksters. It's an interesting way of looking at it through, the psychedelic experience. So again, getting back to environmentalism, really, they do have this technology powerful beyond imagination, right? It's making us look towards the future of technology.
Yep.
Just as kind of like the Philosopher's Stone made people look into the future of chemistry and the beginnings of science. The way that these crafts move, there's no way that it works on our physics, for one, and for two, there's no way that it works on a combustion engine. People can make up all sorts of fantastic scientific reasoning that they're harnessing gravity to travel or blipping in and out of time, but so we can see the impact is that it does not work on the combustion engine, and that kind of scientific theory that we run most of our society on. And again, the message would be, harnessing the powers of technology and logic and rationalism in sync with the kind of regenerative properties of nature. Doesn't mean we need to go back to wearing butt flaps, but we gotta use these things properly.
Yeah. And it seems to be like this recurring theme with regarding a lot of this is to balance things out. But go ahead, Anastasios.
Yes, like also they are not like plate. They remind me, in a sense, the way of the spiral, like they are conical, like gimbals in each side sometimes, or in one side they have a dynamic conical part, like it is a circle, and at the same time is a forward movement up. And this is described also in Heraclitus and many other mysticists, like back in time, and in the spiral movement of progression of the world, and also with the music of the world. And maybe in a sense it is the dynamic of the dialogue, like to go in opposites and to go around, but to go up, in a sense, like something that it rises you. And many of the ideal shapes of many divine beings that you see in mythologies, let's say Ouroboros, or even the shapes of Heraclitus, or the movement of the divine spheres, or the thrones as angels in the Bible, like that I think they are the Ophanim, if I'm not mistaken, that they have many eyes and many circles around, and they move like a very complex kind of contraption, but they are alive and they are watching and they are moving up and down and such. And you have it again in Bible with Elijah, that he is flying to the sky. He is taken, and he is considered to be the greatest of the prophets of the Old Testament. And him and Enoch only they are getting ascended. Like there's no clear sense of paradise in the Old Testament, but there are two people at least that they ascended while in flesh. They left this world.
I don't know, it made me also kind of think about like the idea of like squaring the circle from alchemy, like the kind of spiraling upward kind of idea.
Yeah, the shaped like a symbol, the very, that symbol working out, making sound off of vibrational energy. And kind of seeing the UFO as that, if you were to imagine what kind of physics it's running off of, or what kind of power, this kind of vibrational energy, and the firsthand accounts talking about hearing these strange sounds of vibration or humming or the flute noises, kind of linking that to the psychedelic worldview of everything being vibrational energy. It's very, very interesting. And then even like the the Old Testament angels kind of sound a lot like McKenna's organic machines that the elves showed him. What were you going to say, Base?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there was also something I read regarding the UFOs that apparently is also a recurring thing in UFO lore, but also regarding like the encounters of people that like were taken up to these crafts had reported that the craft itself seems to be conscious in some sense, or living in some sense. So it seems to be pointing towards like it's both like matter, but it's also like consciousness or mind at the same time. So there's like this link between that even in the UFO craft itself, what had been reported.
Yeah, all the story, when you hear about like the UFO abductee stories, you always think of it like it's all such a physical phenomena. But if you dig into the stories, there's gaps in time dilation and all sorts of weird psychedelic and paranormal stuff going on. Like it's very far from any kind of nuts and bolts experience. So yeah, like again, I dislike the term environmentalism because of how it's been appropriated and weaponized in the culture war. Again, like I said, we're not voting our way out of this problem. Start with ourselves and our own actions and try and impact people around you. See, like most of the new things that we buy and most of the new technologies that come out is just dumb shit that makes us more angry, more impatient, and more unhappy, and more disconnected from our family and friends. It's the meme going around now, like touch grass. Things, much like money, they do, give you health and happiness up to a certain point, up to a certain threshold. After that, it all just kind of complicates things, getting back to basics and simplicity.
I think it is also our demeanor that we consume, we want to use, we aspire to use maybe these products and contraptions and machine and the kind of mentality, the usability, like to shortcut fast. We mirror ourselves, like in the things like technology is not bad by itself, but the way we project our want and the desire that it is being incited by companies for the kinds of contraptions, mechanisms such as comfort, the way of life, and so on. These high civilizations, that in a sense they are godly, they have very high kind of technology, but this kind of technology, if one human had, like he wouldn't know what to do with it, or he would try to compensate it into something lesser and may produce even a Superman complex in a sense. Without having all the other characteristics, though, to have harmony and inside and in action, like they would slack off, they wouldn't see all the things as they are, they would have a collapse somewhere. So our technology may show that we don't have harmony ourselves as society. We create this kind of technology.
I think in that sense that it's an interesting thing that you pointed out, and it kind of makes sense. It's like the kind of like, I guess, culture and people that live within, they produce that what is generally there regarding like technology that we use. So it's yes, there's like this interplay between that, but then again, the technology also has like its effects on us and the people that come after. So yeah, there's this like interplay between both. And I guess one thing that we can say regarding that is that like yeah, we definitely have to be more like I guess conscious about that, the interplay between like us and technology, but also maybe bringing it back to like the environment, like how this technology impacts the environment in some in ways that we maybe don't really have foreseen, but still have to address.
Thought it was funny that in that progressive era and even now, the reason that Wikipedia said that the newspapers and mass media was finally so mass consumable, like people could finally afford to, your average person could afford to start reading the newspaper and start getting involved in these things.
Yeah.
It was advertising. It was advertising that allowed that. When advertising is also the thing that kind of causes so much of the kind of mental distress. It's the thing that makes you want to buy things. It's the thing that makes you compare yourself to your neighbor and have the, keeping up with the Joneses kind of idea and stuff. So I thought that was a very interesting sort of irony there. That the very thing that these industries bootstrap to kind of get us to buy shit is also the thing that's waking us up to it.
In the same community, we have a lot of freedom and, in a sense, very, very good welfare compared to other times in human history. But then we are the less communal person, the less communal people, and the more private-oriented people of all times, like we are the most egoistic. And we don't have, even though we have every way to play externally, this is not the truth. As a real democracy, we are the most king for ourselves, like for each one of us. Like we are dissected from the sense of community with other people, with the society we live, and with the world. What we should do, what we want to create better for the world. Do we have a vision? Do we want to hope for something like this kind? It is disassociated today. You don't have a real political community like in, for example, if you compare ancient Athens to today's, I would say for my country, Greek Republic, the whole precipice is very different. Like you have the power to move yourself around as you want, and then to give someone else power to do some things for you, but you don't have the sense of directness even to your fellow citizens. Like there is a cutting even in communication. Everything we will do is through indirect, almost inadvertently, we do things we want because we don't face them. And thus, technology dehumanizes us, and we dehumanize technology. The more we feed it back with the wants and marketing we have.
And I think like I guess a lot of this also ties into like again like the points regarding like the UFOs and their messages regarding like what we're doing to ourselves and like well the planet and at large really, and in that sense also I don't know, to bring it back to like UFOs, I guess like to find like a balance in that. I guess community I would kind of like link also to like I guess like the more like feminine aspects of like the world really, and like through like symbols, it's like often like seen through feminine lens community, and it's kind of also links back to like ideas like Carl Jung and the anima, and but also like the earth goddesses, and a lot of like I guess nature related things too. Because I mean, if there's no like community, then we're not really relating to each other. But then also like in that same sense, it's like I guess we're not really like relating or connecting to nature itself. Because in the example that you brought up, Anastasios, regarding like now Athens versus ancient Athens, the ancient Athenians were still way more connected to nature and to the gods, but also like in that sense, yeah, connected to each other, and overall like I guess more grounded as a society, even though like there has been instances of UFO sightings in like ancient Greece too at points, but I guess it's like when things get a little up in the air and disassociated, and we need to like get back down, I guess in a more grounded sense, when they tend to show up and be like, hey, you guys, how about you guys like calm down and be a bit more grounded about these things, like before we like do something stupid with our technology, or do something that is destructive. Like there's like enough examples regarding like the environmental stuff out there, really to look into in of itself. But yeah.
There's a couple quotes by M.L. von Franz and that man and his symbols, I think, that applied well to this section. Man is the only creature with the power to control instinct by his own will, but he is also able to suppress, distort, and wound it. An animal is never so wild and dangerous as when it is wounded. And then primitive man must tame the animal in himself and make it his helpful companion, but civilized man must heal the animal in himself and make it his friend. There is very much their, human's place on Earth. Instead of being... Go ahead, Anastasio.
Well, like you inspired me on this, and it gave me the word remembrance. Especially in ancient Greece, there is this sense of doing different kinds of wrongdoings, and even the everyday life we commence. It is due to oblivion, because we wanted to sedate our normal understanding of truth. Truth as aletheia means a lack of oblivion. We blind ourselves, in a sense. And that's why moderation was important, to be able to be part of nature, to perform, and to also do what you need, in a sense, like in old art, like ancient Greek art. You don't have giant kind of structures most of the time, or completely destroying like the environment. Maybe also that was a way to promote themselves, like to say we are doing like this, and our enemies, like the Persians, Herodotus shows Xerxes that Xerxes is flailing the ocean because he didn't let his ships to pass. So maybe there is also this kind of difference.
Could be. I just know regarding like Artemis, for instance, that she was associated with like protecting nature and like sacred groves and designating like where to hunt and where not to hunt. Looking at like the priestesses and things, and like kids were like educated regarding like the environment as well. If they would fail to do so, in the old like stories, from what I've seen, they would it would like the goddess would become angry, and they would something would happen, like a bear would come, or like something bad like a plague, or all kinds of other things would start happening, and then that's their cue that like, oh fuck, we have done something wrong. We better like make the goddess happy again, and we right our wrongs. And there really was like, yeah, focus on like this balance. And I guess in a way that's kind of our task, to find that balance within ourselves, but also I guess between technology and the environment.
The UFO symbol itself, it is the unification of these opposites. It's pulling all these things back to the center while simultaneously pushing us into the future. Can't go backwards.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything more to add, Raine, for this one, or if we should kind of.
I can wrap it up. Talk a little bit about the Anima Mundus, but yeah, now would be a good time to get it wrapped up for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is like the idea, the Anima Mundus, of the Earth spirit or the Earth soul. Carl Jung talks about it a lot too. It's definitely a feminine aspect to it. It's got the word anima right in there. Maybe. Well, I think anima just means soul from Greek, so it's not always the one that Carl Jung was talking about, but there is that kind of feminine idea in there. And I'm sure there's all sorts of spiritual ways you can take it, but even just, let's break it down rationally. We ourselves are many things, cells and organs and physical matter and thoughts from our brain. We all identify as one person, one singular entity, right? But we all have these self-corrected processes, both mental and physical. Your organs do their job without any conscious thought to it from yourself. So in that way, the Earth too could, despite many moving pieces, have these kind of similar singular self-correcting mechanisms that we are very much tied to, not only ourselves as individuals, but as we are tied to community, as we are tied to groups, and as we as a whole species are tied to the Earth. So again, there is, even if you insist on being purely rational about it, there is a lot of basis to a lot of these kind of, magical old ideas. That's kind of how I took the Anima Mundus, without getting too crazy with it, without going full McKenna on it. And, I did kind of shy away from a lot of the really kind of traumatic and terrifying aspects of the UFO phenomena. But to end this this part of the podcast, episode 1 here, can talk about, how, I'll just bring it up quickly, how a lot of these abductee experiences, they're completely unwilling abductees, unless you're doing it the McKenna route and you're eating a bunch of mushrooms to go talk to a praying mantis. But these, unwilling experiences where these people are taken up and experimented on, handled and tagged and probed, it does mirror the way that we treat animals and the way that we treat the Earth. So I think there's something there, in that phenomena as a mirror to ourselves and our place in the world. I think that's a good place for me to wrap it up with.
As for the anima, it is Latin. It is the same word as the same root as anemos in Greek, that means wind, and also like the Old Norse word called ont, that means also soul or wind. It's a
Is that
kind of
is it like a
movement
spiritual?
soul.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, like it is like the sense of spirit as coming wind and breath
Okay.
and movement. And another part of this, animal, is from the same word, the thing
Oh,
that has animus. Animus is the spirit. But and spirit also is coming from respiration. But anima is also legit feminine version of animus. Like you can say anima animae also in Latin.
I don't know. A lot of this makes me kind of think about like the Eastern ideas linked to like wind horse and also like the cosmic soul, or like you could call it like the oversoul, and how like wind horse connects one to the cosmic soul or the oversoul. And there's like a lot of ideas regarding that, like this connection between, I guess, everything that is alive and the oversoul through wind horse, or like so the wind or the spirit, because wind horse means like soul as well. The term they use for that is lungta, and it comes out of the shamanic tradition, originally in Eastern Asia, specifically the Bon tradition, but it's also in Mongolia and different cultures. But it's seems to like be tying into that what you were talking about, Anastasios, as well. It's kind of like an similar understanding there, and that's just what it made me still think of. I don't know if anyone has anything more to say regarding that, or if I should wrap up the stream for today.
Yeah, there's the like the qigong or the qigong, depending on how you want to pronounce it. That is like it is kind of earth and wind. It is the squaring the circle kind of thing. There's the movement. You have your physical movement combined with the breathing and the breath, right? So the breath is that kind of idea of the wind and the spirit, and you're doing it in unison with the physical movements of your earthly body. It is that kind of idea of kind of squaring that circle, unifying those opposites too. I think it's kind of built into the language and the etymology too, but I have forgotten a lot of that.
Yeah, it's right. Qigong means like it links both to qi, but Qigong also means Lynn had said at one time to me, because she had watched one video by the Shaolin dude that we used the video from to do Qigong, that it also means breath work at the same time. So kind of the name itself links both these concepts together. Because qi is just is a kind of a different form of basically talking about wind horse too.
That's the. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say they kind of use that kind of interchangeably within like the Tibetan realms of like ideas.
Yeah, sorry, I got excited. That's the Kirin or the Qilin, the that Japanese or Chinese wind horse thing. There's the Qi or the Qi.
Yeah.
And again, that's the wind or the spirit, and then the Lin part is the earth.
Yeah, and it's again like this union of opposites kind of symbols, and then you can like but we can go way deep into the into that when we talk about the Princess Mononoke live stream once we do that in March or some point then or later, anyways. But also a Cosmic Man coming up as well, where we can go into some of the oversoul themes. But yeah, anyways, yeah. If this is it for everyone, then I'm gonna hit end, and then I want to wish everyone an awesome day, night, or morning, and hopefully see you next time for part 2 of the stream, and who knows, for any of the other videos that we will put out or have put out. If you are interested in any of the other stuff, go check out the channel, or look on Spotify, or check out any of the older people that I've had on the channel too. You can find them in awesome channels below in the description of the YouTube channel as well. So yeah.
Yep, perfect place to stop for me. Regroup for next time.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, well, bye everyone. I'll end the stream.